I wake up every day now going, thank God I'm still alive on this planet, because the joy of recognizing I am the creator of my life, I'm not the victim of my genes, changed my entire life. I wake up and I live in heaven.
Hello, my name is Mariko Pitts, the core synergist of the Holo movement. It's a pleasure to be with you all. My passion and purpose in life is to embody more love on the planet. In this episode, we will feature Dr. Bruce H. Lipton, who's a cellular biologist, internationally recognized leader in science and spirit, as well as the founder of the concepts of epigenetics, which is basically where our beliefs and our environment affect our DNA.
My life originally was going into the world of biology and nature, and that led me actually to be a professor in a medical school. And my purpose in that medical school was to awaken people to the nature of the human body and its wonders and its mechanisms, and how fabulous it is to have this body in our world. And yet, while I was doing that, I was conforming to the conventional belief systems, and especially the one that was troubling me was the belief that genes control the character of our lives. And I say, why was it troubling? Because my research on stem cells back in 1967 revealed that genes did not control our lives, that it was the environment that was shaping our genetic activity. And then when I understood the nature of the cells in my body, it was the brain that was manifesting the environment that my cells live in. And then through the chemistry of the brain, I said, well, what is controlling that internal environment? What's controlling that? And I say, well, the brain is the chemist, but I said, but what determined what chemicals should the brain put in? And I started to realize whatever consciousness I was holding in my mind, the brain translated that consciousness into complementary chemistry. And I mean complementary, I mean this: if I have a thought of love, then the chemistry of love, such as dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin for bonding, and growth hormone, these were the chemicals released in a vision of love. But in contrast, if I held a vision of fear, then all of a sudden those chemicals weren't released in the body. My environment now was flush with stress hormones and things that affected my immune system. When understanding this, I realized I couldn't stay a professor in a medical school, because by curriculum they wanted me to go in and do teaching about genes, and I said, this is not true. And I left with a new purpose, and my purpose was this: to inform people of the new science, which took 23 years later after my original research, a new science called epigenetics. And I say, what is that science? It's a science of how environment controls our genes, and yet in our body, our cells, they're in an environment controlled by our brain and our consciousness. I wanted to wake people up, because I woke up. My life completely changed. If you really ask me, I have two distinct lives on this planet: before the awareness of epigenetics and after the awareness of epigenetics. And what's different? Before the awareness of epigenetics, we were victims. Heredity. I didn't pick the genes, they controlled me, they turned on and off. I was just a walking victim of blueprints that were given to me at the moment of conception. After epigenetics, the whole thing turned around and said, no, I'm not a victim of the genes, I'm a master of the genes. Then I had to say, well, if I'm controlling my genes, which control my behavior, then how come my life wasn't so good? And I started to realize, oh, behaviors that I learned during the first 7 years of my life, the programming part, were not supporting that. And then the result led me to, how can I change those? And I understood in nature, and I was introduced by friends to ways of changing those belief systems. So I actively changed those belief systems, and immediately, my life became totally different. So different that I wake up every day now going, thank God I'm still alive on this planet, because the joy of recognizing I am the creator of my life, I'm not the victim of my genes, changed my entire life. I wake up and I live in heaven. Even in the middle of all crazy people, I'm not buying into their world. I buy my own world. And I love it, because I've become independent to that extent that I can create my wishes, my desires. And my life has been wonderful. And what's the point? Well, if my life is so wonderful because I understood the science, then I realized, what if all the people around me were experiencing the same wonderful life? And I go, well, then it wouldn't just me having an experience of my personal heaven on earth, then the whole planet could experience heaven on earth. It was a drive force that says, I'm going to go out there and talk to everybody that I can to help them get out of the victim mentality and get into the creative nature of who they are. Each of us is a spiritual piece of God. Nobody can separate it. It's all quantum physics, in fact. And it's interesting because one of the articles I cite in quantum physics, the concluding sentence, I'll never forget it, says, the universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. And I say that with such gusto because quantum physics is the most valid science on this planet. And they were the ones that said, mind and spirit. And I said, yes, this is the way to do it. And my life has been great because every time I go out and help people, I get the energy back from that. And so I might be elderly in years, just coming on to 80 in the next year, but I don't have that mentality of 80 in my life at all. I am just as happy and young in my life as I was 40 years ago. The most challenging moments I've had in my career was when my research revealed the new science that my colleagues didn't understand. And I was trying to show them this new science that the environment was controlling the cells, not the genes. But that was at an era when everybody was into genes. Genes this, genes that, all the money was going to genes. And I'm the only guy standing there going, I don't think that's true. And my colleagues looked at me like I was a crazy person. I actually felt for a while that I might be crazy because everyone else was against my whole belief system. I even went back to my graduate school where I got my PhD, and there was one of the world's top cell biologists there. And I really had to ask him because I was so sure I was right. But then I realized, crazy people think they're right as well. So I asked him, I said, tell me what's wrong with my idea. And he said, that's not what we're thinking today. And I go, I know it's not what you're thinking. I said, tell me what's wrong with it. And he looked at me and he was like arms crossed and he goes, it's too simple. And I actually laughed out loud in his face. Now I looked like a crazy person. And when I got my composure back, I stopped and I said, Lenny, let me tell you, the first week in graduate school, I was taught something called Occam's razor. Occam's razor is a philosophy that says the simplest hypothesis is the best hypothesis and should be considered before all others. And I said, if you think it's too simple, I want to thank you for that, because I believe it is as well. And 23 years later, finally science caught on and I was vindicated. I'm not crazy because yes, it's all consciousness, it's all spirit, and it really is a joy. So I went from crazy person to jubilant person. The most important advice I can offer people to get out of the conventional world that they're living in and start to move into the world that I've been living in myself is to wake them to the fact that their creative mind is the conscious mind, is not really offering the life that they want. Creative conscious mind is the one with wishes and desires and aspirations. I say you're not operating from that mind, you're operating from programmed mind, which is in the subconscious. And when I can try to give them that story, because the problem is this, why, if I have a conscious mind, why am I not using that? The number is 5% actually. That's how much of our life from that creative mind. Why only 5%? And the answer is the conscious mind can do two things. It can look out the eyes and then navigate us through the world. Or the conscious mind can think. I say, oh, well, then the eyes are not looking out because when we're thinking, it's looking in. That is the monkey wrench for people. I say, what do you mean? I say, they don't realize that the moment they're thinking, which is 95% of the day, their behavior is now taken over by their subconscious program. It's the autopilot. So if I'm driving a car and I'm thinking, then my conscious mind's not looking out the window. I'm in thought. And I say, well, somebody's driving the car. I go, the subconscious, it's a program. Subconscious is habits. I go, the big issue is this. People do not realize that the behavior they're playing most of the day is not who they are. that they're playing a program, and they themselves don't see it. And the reason is simply this: because they're not paying attention, because their conscious mind is looking inside. And all of a sudden, they're not living the lives they want. They're living the lives they've been programmed to live.